A new analysis from the Labour Party in relation to the Gorton and Denton by-election shows that Labour lost white working class voters to the Greens. Labour lost white working class voters to Greens and Gorton Denton Party analysis finds, Lucy Powell says, by-election showed people need a reason to vote Labour as senior figures considered change in strategy. Labour's deputy leader Lucy Powell told activists and members it was a warning the party could lose voters on its left flank who went far beyond the stereotype of progressive young professionals and those from Muslim communities. Now, for months, we were told that the Greens won off the back of so-called sectarian politics, that they only appealed to minorities. I mean, even The Guardian published this back in February, talking about the Muslim vote shifting to the Greens, echoing Labour's line that they were playing sectarian politics. However, despite this, it seems that Lucy Powell hasn't learned their lesson. Powell said analysis from the campaign had found the two biggest reasons for not voting Labour were tactical voting to keep reform out and protest voting to send Labour a message. Now, while it's likely that those two reasons were part of the story, stopping reform and voters showing their displeasure at Labour, what Powell fails to acknowledge is that people also want to vote for the Green Party as they like their policy agenda. Reducing Green support only down to a protest or tactical vote completely misses the way people feel about politics, that there is a lack of urgency from politicians to deal with people's material conditions, and the Greens are at least attempting to do that. Ben, whilst it's true minorities are leaving Labour and finding their home with the Greens, do you think there is a broader trend of voters who aren't a minority or a progressive graduate moving to the Greens, and it's like, you know, the traditional working class people? Or do you think Gorton Denton was unique because Hannah Spencer is a white working class plumber?
I think that Gorton and Denton is in some ways unique because it's quite well situated for the Greens to win. But there are a lot of places like that across the UK. Gorton and Denton particularly had like a large student population. It's unusually like young and diverse, particularly when we're talking about Gorton, less so when we're talking about Denton. And also Gorton voters had some of the highest fuel poverty levels in the country. And so these are all areas that the Greens do kind of well in. Those are conditions that the Greens do relatively well under. But again, data has shown that the white working class voters voted Green in this case, and that's kind of consistent with the national data showing that people under 55 are just overwhelmingly supporting the Greens. Like people who are working class, not just in the sense of their class status, but are actually like in work as well, do overwhelmingly support the Greens, much more so than they support Labour, although Labour are a close second among that cohort. It's very much sort of relatively left-wing, if you can call the Labour Party left-wing anymore, relatively left-wing voting cohort. And of course, Labour's campaign in Gorton and Denton was designed around frightening the socially conservative voter, saying things like, Zach wants to give children drugs. What was it? Your playground will become a crack den, and going on about like legalizing prostitution, and they want to your daughter to be sold into prostitution or something. It's horrible stuff. They went really low with their campaign, like lower in some cases than Reform did. And I think a lot of voters are, one, put off by that, but also the kind of voter that would appeal to is typically voting Conservative or Reform anyway. You're not going to win many people over with that because the people who might be won over by that message already have that message from Reform and the Conservatives. They're already got two people competing for that message. And of course, the Greens are coming in with something that's like new and different. And you're right, like, it's their policies that win people over. You need both. You need good communication and good policies that show like a good understanding of how to fix people's problems, their real problems. Because, of course, none of that scaremongering is very effective among students. Good luck scaremongering about drugs among students, or like the younger population who we get our news from social media. And of course, minority communities of all types understand how poverty affects them, and they're much more concerned about that than they are concerned about, like, you know, the decriminalisation of sex work or the decriminalisation of drugs. A lot of them understand and support that stuff. And then I think the final thing is that Labour have just treated Muslim voters appallingly, and the rise of, like, Islamophobia that I was talking about the other week is partly due to the things that the Labour Party's done, and the Labour Party and other governments, I should say, have done, and their refusal to listen to the concerns of Muslim voters about Gaza. I mean, I don't want to bring everything in the show back to Gaza, but, like, I think that is a factor here. You know, it's a smaller factor, but it is a factor. And that includes, by the way, it's not just Muslims who are concerned about Gaza. It's also going to be young people and white working class people who are concerned about Gaza, because they're never given any credit for it. Like, working class people are never given any credit for it. But working class people as a whole are intelligent, and working class people understand that the phrase in our thousands, in our millions, we are all Palestinians, it's not an abstract phrase. It means that the treatment that we see going on towards the Palestinians, whether that's in the West Bank or Gaza, is the treatment that we can expect in decades to come, to start to come here, through our policing, through our military interventions, through our security state, through the way which minorities are treated in our society, and the way which politicians act and are held accountable. All of that, indeed, a lot of that is probably coming here, and working class people, you know, of all different types, are painfully aware of that fact, and I think that Labour kind of underestimates them by ways going to the lowest common denominator.